what the hell were you thinking? In 2016, where the browser wasn't even ready, for those graphics.
What we are building is this infrastructure that will allow brands of all sorts, whether it's B2B brands, industrial machinery, healthcare, or consumer brands like Unilever or Rolex or whatever, to be able to fill in the smart glasses with 3D content, because that's how you're going to be able to then explore products now. You're not just going to be seeing products, you're going to be able to interact with the product. And we give them that infrastructure to build that experiences on the new product discovery era that we're entering. So yeah, we're still at 1% of what it is that we do. And going back to your question, in 2017, we were not even at 0.001% of where the world is right now. But we like to take gambles. We were quite young. I had a whole, database of consumer behavior development over the past 5 years. I was seeing how fast consumer behavior shift. Do you know what is the biggest cost item that Meta has in its P&L right now? It's where it invests is the most of its money right now.
Well, 10 billion is on the metaverse, right? This is old news, but
that's old news. But right now, as we talk right now, they're spending more than close to $1 billion on silicon gel. You know what silicon gel is?
No.
Is basically that, obviously, if you mold it the right way and everything, it allows you to build really funky, super lightweight smart glasses. And therefore, now, as we speak, Meta, Google, Windows, Snap, and Apple, they're in a race as to who's gonna launch the most scalable, most user-friendly, lightweight smart glasses. And that's what's gonna replace the iPhone or smartphones in general, which starts, to your point, to feel like this old device, unsexy almost. And we're soon gonna enter into this new era of new product discovery, of new consumer behavior.
Welcome to the Financial Frontiers podcast. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit that bell icon to get notified when we upload new content. Follow us on Spotify and give us a 5-star rating. It'll help the channel, which I hope you love so much. And here we are, another episode of the Financial Frontiers podcast. That's the way I start all of these podcasts. I just say that. This is it just so happened.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
It just so happened. Very interesting guest today, Mike Charalambous, co-founder of Threedium, who's reached some kind of a success here, at least on funding. And we'll talk about what the actual product is, how successful that is. Your previous history. Let's go as far back as possible. We're talking the topic today is going to be, if I can predict it, mainly around startups, entrepreneurship, technology, retail. I guess retail is going to be in the discussion. Retail business, e-commerce. Mike, thank you for your time. Please introduce yourself. Let's get into a conversation over here. And thank you.
It's truly a pleasure to be here, Dinos, and thanks for discovering me and inviting me over. For all the topics you touch base, I think I lost one hair for each, so I've got a lot of wisdom to share for entrepreneurship, retail, tech, entrepreneurship, you name it. Yeah, I mean, it's a wild journey. Definitely not for everybody. Not that we are the selected few, but once you decide to go down that path, you just rediscover some powers or superpowers you never thought you have, and then you're dropped in the middle of the sea, and then you're forced to find the shore. So you discover some sort of survival skills that in a different comfortable zone you wouldn't be able to push the boundaries, and I think that's what's happening here.
You're talking about the journey of getting into startup land, starting from the beginning, or what journey is that?
Any journey that entails going solo, finding the right people to support you, turning an idea, a dream, a vision into a reality, something tangible, and try to make money out of it. It's for anything. There's a similar pattern. There's a playbook that you need to follow to achieve those things. It's not always easy. Actually, it's most of the times very difficult. But if you ever always show up and you keep going, chances are getting better and more skewed towards your side.
Yeah, it's funny that you've brought up the term patterns, and I don't know if it's just a coincidence, but over the past 2 weeks, that term has been brought up in terms of successful business.
Yeah.
I think I was seeing a video or a little clip with Tony Robbins who mentioned it. I saw one with Bezos, I think.
Yeah.
And coincidentally, now in the past, over 2 weeks, and now you mentioned it as well. And I mean, I know this as well, patterns. Being able to recognize trends and patterns from the past. And, and another one is history doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes.
I love that. I've never heard that, but it's good.
Yeah, I like that.
I'll steal that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I don't know who said that, but, someone has. History doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes. It's very interesting. But, sorry, yeah. So you said patterns and your success. So let's go, let's speak about your history. Go back. So Threedium obviously is the current startup you're working on, 70 employees, whatever it is, over 10 million in funding.
15, yeah, more precisely.
15 million in funding. We'll get into that, but let's go back. Let's go a little bit more back, I guess, from what you studied and where you were based.
Well, it's not that long ago when I began my professional journey when I detached myself from parents and everything. But I always had a nag for entrepreneurship in a way. I remember back in high school, we were in the English school, and at the time we had this amazing football team, and we were winning all the local tournaments and everything, and we wanted to push our luck internationally. And the school said, look, guys, it's great. You have definitely a great team, but we cannot sponsor you as school. We've never done them before. But if you find sponsors who are willing to sponsor the team, we'll gladly give you the time off to go and compete internationally. And it was like an unthinkable thing to do at the time because nobody ever tried that before. And myself, along with my cumbaros now, we went on a kind of an unusual journey where we went out and we were pitching to all these directors in really big corporations in Cyprus about why they should sponsor an 18-year-old team in English school to go and play in a Czech Republic tournament, right? We've spoken to so many different corporates and directors. We had no idea what we were telling them or what exactly it is that they care, but we had that flair, that passion. So at 18 people that we've spoken to, 2 actually said, yes, we'll sponsor you guys. And that was Hilton and PwC.
Wow. So
we ended up getting some really good money, and we went internationally. We competed. We actually reached the finals.
Oh.
We had a few of our team members, actually, they were also scouted to go to professional clubs to play thereafter. Didn't end up having a tremendous career, but we opened up opportunities for everybody. And we're also the first team in the English school that was able to go and compete internationally, and that set up the expectations for everybody else thereafter. And it was also a good reputational win for the school to try and convincing more students to feel that, hey, if I go to English school, it's not just the academic, but I've got other recreational activities that can open me more doors. So it was such a great win, and that was like the aha moment for me, that I started kind of understanding that I have skills that I should be leveraging more on negotiations or trying to create some sort of strategic value to things that I'm doing. So after I graduated from the English school, I always wanted to, continue in the path of being as close to entrepreneurship as possible. So I went to CAS Business School in London. I did my bachelor's degree in management science. I then finished, I joined Nokia as part of the product management team for the new Lumia phones at the time. They were trying to compete against iPhone. Actually, they were there even before the iPhones. But then because the company was suffering from this huge hubris and bias that nobody's going to overthrow them because they were just too big to fail, And then overnight we were just
What
killed, demolished by iPhone, and then we all had to find ourselves looking for another job.
what year was that?
That was, I joined Nokia around 2012, and I stayed with them for just a bit more than a year. So it must have been around 2014 that they've officially said us that we're shutting it down, the department.
Yeah, so that was actually after their decline.
Yeah. And Lumia phones was supposed to be their holy grail, the thing that was gonna basically, restore their monopoly position in the market, but it failed miserably. Not because it lacked from a product perspective or from features. Actually, it was so good, but they've done two things wrong. They misunderstood the value of storytelling and how a product needs to be communicated to consumers, because it was a shifting time on consumer behavior, and people didn't just want to hear one more unsexy tech gadget being sold to them. They wanted to understand what problems it solves, and that's where the shift started to become, where consumers became a bit more demanding on how products were sold to them. And not just that, they did another pivotal mistake, which was they've chosen to go with Microsoft operating system at the time, which was, even though it was powerful enough, it was not as user-friendly as the iOS was. And therefore, when the users started playing with it and interacting with it, it didn't feel as sexy as the iPhone did. And even though it was cheaper, people still felt that they were going to be way more successful, way more important, way more, recognizable if they used an iPhone instead of a Lumia phone. And that was the end of it, basically.
It's interesting. So the Lumia, you said the name now and I forgot that term completely, but Lumia was that revamped Nokia Windows-based phone, which was basically this device that iPhone kind of introduced into the world, which is just one screen.
Yeah.
It was after the buttons, after the BlackBerry,
but it just didn't work as smoothly.
Yeah, because Windows still needed catching up to do.
Yeah.
Android might have been a better option.
Yeah.
Because there were a lot of up and coming brands back then that chose to go the Android route. Samsung.
Yeah. But Nokia being like the experts in the field, they're like, Android is so new, untested. Yeah, well, Google did just acquire it, but who trusts Google? Mind you, that was back 2012, right? So it was a completely different world. But this is how fast technology progresses and changes, right? It was a series of wrong bets that just like they were so close to one another that it was inevitable that Nokia was about to go bust.
What's happening with Nokia now?
They still exist. They're really powerful in the mapping technology, and they're actually focusing a lot more in defense, which they're absolutely killing it. But that's their niche right now. Yeah. And
I think they've also brought back that retro. I'm going to call it retro, right, with the buttons, but that 3310.
Yeah, that was my favorite phone.
The best. I used to play Snake on there. Snake, I was a pro.
I know.
I love that game.
I know. You're thinking, if I'm Nokia and have 3310, how can I ever go out of business? Right?
Yes, imagine.
But that's how fast consumer behaviors change. And if you're not able to, on a CEO level, think 10 years ahead or try to predict 5 years ahead, and you're stuck in the moment, suffering from this hubris of what works now, it's going to work forever. It's one of the recipes of disaster and one of the patterns that lead to failures.
You see, here's the other thing. I don't think anybody can predict. I think the ones who are in the front pushing innovation, whoever wins to convince the market is what becomes the future, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. But that's the scientific approach of it. If you're like an average Joe, let's say, and I don't want to be sounding condescending anyway, but I'm saying if you're just someone that you're not in the weeds every day, reading Economist every day, having insights into the deepest secrets of of decision making, there are things that you can see and understand how you can project ahead or make patterns, right? For instance, if let's say you understand that, I'm going to give you a very recent example now in Cyprus, right? You're seeing that there is like golden passports and getting all these people flying in to move in Cyprus because of wars in Israel, whatever. Like by definition, you know that real estate is going to go up. Demand for rent is going to go up. Demand for infrastructure is going to go up. Demand for all sorts of services that, you know, in Germany, in London, and all these big countries are just so used to, and we don't have them in Cyprus. It's easy to understand that there's a whole new opportunity opening up there, and you don't have to be an entrepreneur to know that, you know, there's things that I can do there. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it's very easy, small things around you that if you start jotting down the dots, you can shape up patterns and see opportunities arising, you know. This is just like a very quick technique of how to do it.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Seeing the patterns, and you do need to be an entrepreneur, I believe, to actually care and have that, you know, that itch within you, you know, to see an opportunity. So I guess that's a characteristic of, you know, being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think execution is actually the key. I agree with you. So I have all these friends of mine, 10 times smarter than I am, but they're so polarized into their everyday stuff, afraid to lose their day-to-day or month-to-month paycheck, afraid to lose the normality of their routines. But if they chose to go into the entrepreneur path, I would guarantee you they were going to be like 10x more successful than I will ever be. But there's just always something holding them back, you know? And that's why when I said in the beginning that if you're in those selected few that they choose to risk everything and go for it, definitely the odds are against you, but the higher the reward is. And then once you go into the survival mode and you see that, okay, I can survive, then you're willing to throw yourself into deeper jungles and wilder ecosystems, and you just go for it. You know, you keep learning because you just lost that that feeling you had of caring too much whether you're gonna fail or not, because, you know, one way or another, I'm either gonna survive or die, but it doesn't matter if I die, you know.
Yeah,
it's the adrenaline rush that you build, and you just want to reliving that.
Right. And, you know, you started off this podcast by saying, you know, it's a journey that is not cut out for everyone.
Yeah.
And, you know, understanding what that journey is like. Yes, it's a liberating thing, you know, to be an entrepreneur. It does have its difficulties. I mean, it does. And it's, you know, as you said, not cut out for anyone, because you got to be on your toes. You got to have that mindset. If I die, it's okay. I'll wake up again and try again.
Yeah, we always live another life. Right?
100%. So you were in Nokia.
Correct.
Couple of years.
Yeah, we did a bit of a detour there, but it was worth it.
The detours are interesting. You get deep, you know.
Yeah.
Time goes by.
So Nokia began to really going past. It was a sinking ship. They had to let us go. We got a good remuneration package. So I was at that intersection to decide what is next for me. I was still quite young. It was my first gig. So I was always enamored by finance, and I always wanted to enhance a bit more my skills in that. I'm not your standard numbers guy. Like, I don't live with numbers, but I understand the importance of numbers. And I wanted to be able to be in a position to read better a P&L, or to be able to do my own projections if I wanted to. So I did my master's in LSE in investment management. I learned how to build my own portfolios, how to set up my own risk deviations to build my own models for investment purposes. It was a great new experience for me. And that allowed me to go into the finance world. So I then joined Moody's as a risk analyst. I was saying previously in another podcast I joined that I learned how to swear in 7 different languages joining Moody's, because guess what? I was a junior guy. My boss will call me like, hey, today we're going to downgrade Russia, Portugal, Malta. And guess what? You're going to go pick up the phone and tell them that. I was like, oh, crap. So, I was a poor guy putting in the numbers in the software. The software would say triple B or minus triple A, whatever. But I had to pick up the phone and I had to be the bearer of the bad news. And I was the one getting all the shit. Excuse my French. But, how dare you?
Man, oh man.
And how horrible is it to wake up every morning wearing a suit, going to freaking Canary Wharf, thinking somebody's going to lose their job today because of me, or somebody's going to go back home not being able to provide for their family. So when you go deep thinking that like that, you can really be happy and enjoy whatever it is that you do.
No.
And that was the wake-up call for me to say, look, man, what are you doing here? Like, you only live once, or maybe in this life, you don't know how long you're going to live for. Go do something that's going to make you happy. Wake up every Monday and wake up with a smile, right? Love yourself. Why are you inflicting so much pressure on you? So I went back into the branding world and I joined WPP, which at the time was the second largest media group in the world. And I was part of their Wonderman agency. And we were creating user behavior analysis to predict successful future product launch campaigns for consumer electronic products. So, for instance, we were tasked by LG and Samsung and what have you that they were telling us, look, we're going to launch these new TV sets or these new headsets or whatever. Let us know which markets are ready for them and what kind of marketing we need to do to be impactful in those markets. And we're doing user focus groups day after day, country after country. We were seeing all these different behaviors, and we had our own kind of pockets as to what kind of products and what kind of marketing tricks work for whatever market. It was very interesting time for me. I think looking back, you always see how different pieces of the puzzle usually fit in together to get you somewhere eventually.
Of course.
And if I was not doing that, I was never going to be able to do what I'm doing today.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, we started seeing through all these different consumer behavior analysis that people were becoming ever more immune into scrolling. At the time that people started going into this autopilot of swiping all the time, they were exposed to so much content that their brain was not used to that. So all of a sudden, they're not able to absorb or remember the 10 last seconds of their swiping instance, let alone the kind of advertising that they were exposed to. So we started seeing that in order to get them to exit that autopilot mode and become a bit more reactive into their content was to find a way to basically stop doing the gesture and change the way that they will behave on the screen. No static video or no static image or video was able to do that for them. So we had to find a way to gamify the whole thing. And therefore we started showing videos, but in order to trigger them, you had to click play or you had to do something to make them pause for a moment. And that's how you started to building more enhanced brand recall. And I remember I was going from different cognitive seminars to ad tech conferences, trying to find cool technologies to use so we can amplify new rich media formats, let's say, for brands. And it was at that time that I came across this very passionate guy called Dushan, that it was 2016. But he told me he can get 3D on the web and he can create dynamic content. I was like, are you for real? Like, you cannot imagine how many people are selling me shit. This sounds quite sci-fi, although I'm enamored. So tell me more. And I shortlisted 10 technologies at the time that I was evaluating to see which ones we would possibly acquire as WPP or possibly partner with to build new rich media formats and sell to the brands. And I remember from the 10 companies we were evaluating, we shortlisted 3. Dushan's company was one of them. And as I was spending more and more time with those guys, I began really falling in love with their idea, with their product, with the way that they were thinking ahead. There was a lot of overlapping in how we saw the world in the next 5 years. And I knew that if we're going to buy them or partner with them, eventually we would just dismantle their product and make it something more agency-like, which was going to lose the magic. And we wouldn't probably give them any really good offers because they were too small for them to have any bargaining power with WPP on an acquisition discussion. And you know, when you reach that point and you wake up in the morning and you think more of another idea versus what you do every day, that's like an inflection point, and that's what I've reached. So I took the risk, and it was a massive risk, and I bowed my sayonara to my big boss in WPP, and I changed ships, and I joined Dusan and their team. I told them, look, I'm going to come in as a CEO, I'm going to bring in some investors, and we're going to go solo and forget about the WPP. And, you know, the guy was like, are you fucking nuts? Like, you know, we've got WPP, $15 billion revenue organization.
Yeah.
We want to collaborate with them. And I was like, dude, trust me, it's not as sweet as it sounds. Like, we can do better. And the guy was also a bit of a rock and roll kind of guy. He had a few exits under his belt as well. So he had skin in the game. So it's like, okay, I love your style. Let's do it. We never looked back. I quit my job. I joined. I brought in some investments, and then Threedium, as we know it, was formed. And we've been 7 years at it. We keep growing every year. We went from a team of 3.5 people to now 68 people, with headquarters in London, offices in New York, Belgrade, Paris. So it's doing quite well, better than what we would have done if we just stick under WPP.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done. There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
Okay. So WPP, largest media company, second largest, or one of the largest. And so you were talking about the formats of advertising, and these are this is research that's done on the existing social media platforms and browsers, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's what you're talking about when you say scrolling. That is what social media has done to society, right? And
yeah, it's sad.
Yeah.
It works, but it's sad. You know?
Yes. And so you got to work around that. It's very interesting what you and I'm also interested in how you actually got that information. How do you get that information that somebody has forgotten, for example, the last 10 seconds of what they saw when they were scrolling? It's interesting how you even figure that out.
Look, we spend hours and hours in studios bringing in all sorts of different people from all sorts of different gender groups, wealth groups, even on different jurisdictions, people will behave differently. For instance, we will see in France that people in the center of Paris had a different browsing behavior than people staying on the 19th or 20th kind of neighborhood of Paris. So it was crazy, but like you just see how people behave, and then you start building again patterns. But you also have to ask the right questions, and we would always ask them, hey, can you tell us what, the last 3 things that you've seen? What can you identify them?
Right.
Can you let us know what kind of advertising you've seen on the past 10 seconds that you were swiping? And you could see that people were not able to say, like, crap.
Wow. Wow. So it's taking samples from the data, testing those samples, seeing the behavior, and then moving on. Oh, wow. Okay. Right. And now you mentioned the guy's name. He's your partner.
Dusan.
Dusan, who obviously came in. I kind of lost that his placement there. He was one of also a media company or startup.
No, they were a startup.
Okay.
He actually had just sold his previous company. He created a bidding algorithm and sold it to a betting company in Serbia.
Oh, cool.
So he was doing quite well for himself, and he wanted to find the next evolution of the web. And for him, because he was such a hardcore tech guy, the next evolution was 3D on the web, because that's what pushes the boundaries on content, on product experiences, product discovery, shifting away from imagery and videos into something more dynamic. And that's what I started resonating with as well. And we're now seeing in action right now. So that was his thesis, and that's what got me enamored. They didn't have a name for the company at the time. I think it was called something else, something like modular. And then we went to make it something sexier, more eye-catching, such as Threedium.
So, I'm going to build a bit of context here, and then maybe I'm going to ask you a question on how because a lot of businesses could be super successful, and if you look again, patterns, right? You look at the history, where if you're too early with something super innovative, you might be ahead, right? You might be ahead. Your idea might be spot on in terms of what's going to happen, but you might be too early into the market. Maybe infrastructure is not ready, whatever. And what Threedium touches on is exactly this. And if you had to ask me, in my mind, and especially in 2017 when you started. So just to build the context here, the 3D models is you've got. I saw your website, for example. I know this, and it's a great idea. So there's a watch, for example. Rolex is a perfect customer, where you take your piece and you present it to the consumer who's looking at it, and you can open it up and zoom in and highly graphic, excellent graphics, and really get a taste of the product without actually holding the physical product, but getting a 3D view of it. And
you're describing it way better than I would ever do. So it's almost hair rising.
And I think where a business like Threedium, you're already doing well, and that's actually symbolic. I mean, it's indicative of where the world is going. And I think your massive jump happens where augmented reality is part of mainstream.
Yeah, that is also very true.
That's where it's a game changer for you.
100%.
Big jump, because, and this is where, your tech might be a bit too early. And so what do you do in what exists today in technology? And I'm just building context to ask you a question. What were you thinking in 2017? But let me just build the context there. Virtual reality, right? AR, augmented reality, meaning you got a wearable. That's easy. I'm sure you've seen this Apple.
We're using that.
The Vision testing. Pro. My goodness, that's mind blowing.
It is.
Oh my God, that's mind blowing. I went to Apple in the US. They gave me a 30-minute demo, and it blew my mind. It freaking blew my mind.
It's crazy.
And the precision, like you look at the Apple environment as we are. I mean, just to describe it to the audience over here and what it is, the experience is. I don't think my words can sum it up. You got to actually see it. And apart from the fact that it is not super comfortable, right? You've got this thing on, but you're looking at the Apple environment. You just look at a point, you pinch, it's gestures, there's no controls, pinch, and it's super accurate. Take it. I mean, I tested it by opening up an Excel. And so here was the experience. I took the menu and I moved it away, out of my front vision. Yeah. So, if I look to the left, and if you can imagine, different screens, you had multiple screens.
Forget about monitors, right?
Especially traders, right? You got 4 physical things. You can have 20. And you just put one in the distance and you can pick it up and bring it forward. Incredible. So I moved it and I opened up an Excel and I located one specific point on the cell which I wanted to drag. Spot on. Every time. It wasn't, so it's picking up my eyes,
the retina, everything.
Blew my mind. And then I changed the environment, and so they said, where do you want to go? So I chose the moon, right? So I changed the environment. Now I'm sitting on the moon, You know, the sounds are incredible. You feels like you're there, and then it's telling you, the Apple employees telling me, like, look around. I look around, I see Earth. I'm like, fuck, where is
What's
the
happening?
world going, right? And so that's happening.
Yeah.
The obstacle is it's not comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But when they figure that out, whether that is a contact lens or a wearable that's comfortable, whatever, this device starts, whoever's making money from selling these physical devices needs to start thinking, I would short that stock because it's going to change.
100%.
And so Threedium has already started the tracks where you're walking down the road and there's a restaurant and you can see in 3D the food that they've got. Swipe the menu, look at the next one. Or, there's a retail shop, jewelry store. What do they have in stock? I'm looking at the gold, and you don't even step into the store.
Yeah. You can even buy it without walking into it.
Or you can even buy it. So what's the use of having physical? Yeah, it's where the world is going. So having built all of that context, what the hell were you thinking in 2016 where the browser wasn't even ready, for those graphics?
Look, for a moment, before I go back to time, let's talk about patterns as well, since we're on the topic. Do you know what is the biggest cost item that Meta has in its P&L right now? It's where it invests the most of its money right now.
Well, 10 billion is on the metaverse, right? This is old news, but
that's old news. But right now, as we talk right now, they're spending more than close to $1 billion on silicon gel. You know what silicon gel is?
No.
Is basically that. Obviously, if you mold it the right way and everything, it allows you to build really funky, super lightweight smart glasses. And therefore, now, as we speak, Meta, Google, Windows, Snap, and Apple, they're in a race as to who's going to launch the most scalable, most user-friendly, lightweight smart glasses. And that's what's going to replace the iPhone or smartphones in general, which starts, to your point, to feel like this old device, unsexy almost. And we're soon going to enter into this new era of new product discovery, of new consumer behavior, where I'm not sure if you've tested the new smart glasses, but if you go to Ray-Ban or Oakley and they have these Meta-powered smart glasses, you wear them. Really cool, by the way. You get to change whatever lens.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
I have seen it. Yep.
You wear it, you go into a restaurant, you pull up a French menu and you say, hey, Meta, translate what I'm saying. And it can translate the entire menu, whether it's in Chinese or whatever, in the language of your preference.
The technology is there.
Yeah. So what we are building is this infrastructure that will allow brands of all sorts, whether it's B2B brands, industrial machinery, healthcare, or consumer brands like Unilever or Rolex or whatever, to be able to fill in the smart glasses with 3D content, because that's how you're going to be able to then explore products now. You're not just going to be seeing products, you're going to be able to interact with the products. And we give them that infrastructure to build that experiences on the new product discovery era that we're entering. So yeah, we're still at 1% of what it is that we do. And going back to your question, in 2017, we were not even at 0.001% of where the world is right now. But we like to take gambles. We were quite young. I had a whole, database of consumer behavior development over the past 5 years. I was seeing how fast consumer behavior shifts. Dushan at the time, he is like a web development mogul. So he understands how fast browsers develop. At the time where we were starting, we knew exactly where we were positioned, that the browsers were not sustainable enough for what it is that we do. The consumers don't even understand that what we do is actually a necessity. The brands didn't even know that. But we felt that being the first in the market will give us an advantage down the line. And we were all happy to sacrifice 1-2 years of building before we go to market. We didn't know, and we were not able to predict whether it was actually going to be 2 years or 5 years or 7 years working on this before we start making some money. But we were so young that our risk appetite was so much bigger, and we had nothing to lose, so we went for it. Looking back, right now, as the Mike I am today, I was probably not going to make the same decision. and because it took us a while, it really took us a while. The brands were not able to understand our proposition when we started. We were not able to formulate a very captivating story as to what kind of problem we were solving for them. It was for many, many years a nice to have tool. And therefore we were only able to work with companies that they were able to innovate far ahead. And that's why, and that's like a double-edged sword, because at one edge, like your total addressable market is not big. But then again, you work with the companies that they have money, that they're seeing 5 years ahead, that they want to invest 5 years ahead. So therefore, you are working with the world's most innovative companies to build the world 5 years from now. And that gives you other kind of dynamics as you continue to grow. So that is what happened to us. Like we were going door to door, pitching from, Boohoo and H&M and Johnson & Johnson and Sainsbury's and Argos, all the way to Apple, to Adidas and what have you. And we started seeing that 95% of the brands we were reaching out to, they didn't have time for us. But there was a 5% that not only they had time for us, not only they found what we were saying appealing, but they were willing to devote resources and money to perfection it for their own needs and strategic goals. So this small company we were at the time that nobody really knew about ended up working with the LVMH group, which is by far the number one luxury group in the world, even in retail. Adidas and also Argos in London. So imagine what we were able to do. We were a small team focusing a lot on those three clients in completely three different sectors with different users, different characteristics, and we were building with them. And the moment I remember the first time we went live with LVMH, it was for Fendi. Like Fendi, you will go into the store, and if you were a VIP client, Fendi will get you into this private room, show you this digital screen where you were able to design your own jacket in 3D. And this was only for the selected few. And guess what? It was performing crazy well. We were able to launch a few 3D ads for Tiffany's bracelets. And the results were outstanding. More than 160% increase in engagement. I cannot say the sales figures because I'm not allowed to, but it drove significant sales uplift for the Tiffany's jewelries to be sold online. Adidas was able to start saving a lot of money digitalizing content from imagery to 3D to push to websites instead of having to bring physical products, photo shoot them, create the content, publish it. So we started seeing all these problems that we were solving for them, both on the prototyping phase, content creation, but also customer experience. And that was the aha moment that, holy crap, we actually have a tool that can solve problems. And then we were able to use the numbers, build case studies, and then go and start winning all these other brands in the world. And right now we're sitting to the epicenter of digital transformation for all these major brands. We're working with Amazon, AWS, Salesforce, you name it. And we've built this infrastructure that through images, through heavy industrial 3D files, we're able to convert all these things into very usable 3D assets, which then the brands can use to create static renders, CGI videos, 3D viewers to dynamically browse a product, 3D configurators to customize dynamically your products, 3D ads to be able to see a product in a banner and interact with it, even optimize those 3D assets to deploy them within games if you want to sell them within Roblox or whatever. And all these things are also attached with user behavior data. So at every instance, once you publish the solutions, you can see how users interact with your products. How many times do they spin them? Have they spent more time on the top part of your product and then shifted to the bottom part of the product? Is there a correlation with that browsing? Do you learn something about that behavior? And we feed that data back to the design teams and the commerce teams, and then they're using it in their own ways to either amplify future collections or optimize their conversion skill tactics on the consumer-facing channels. So all of a sudden, we went from a nice to have to a really important to have tool. And we have all these brands spending money and closing 2 or 3 year deals with us because they see that as an investment as they amplify their workflows, processes, and entering into the new era of product discovery.
That's super interesting. And just a few questions. So I'm imagining myself a customer now.
Yeah.
And I'm the owner of Louis Vuitton.
Yeah.
Imagine.
One day, if you can dream it.
What do I need to know, right? So what are you giving me? Are you giving me a software? And with this software, am I taking a picture of my product, putting it into the software, and then I click a button, and then it creates these 3D models? And then what do I do with those 3D models? Is that even compatible? Do I load it on Facebook? Do I load it on Instagram? Will it work on TikTok? I've got these shops. Do I need a specific device that can render graphics? What is all? I mean, or do you do these for me? Is it a service that you provide? You know, do you have your graphics guys who know how to kind of work with this application? You know, because, and I'm just going to kind of plot it. I'm imagining you're almost like an Adobe Illustrator, but for 3D models, maybe not. If I go to Adobe and I buy the software, I need to hire a graphics person who knows how to use that software. Yep. So how can I sum that up in one sentence? What are you giving me? Is it a tool? Do you provide a service?
Yeah. That's a great question. That changes every 6 months as an answer. And that's because the world evolves and the brands evolve. So when we started, there was not a single brand that had a 3D artist or a 3D generalist in their team. And therefore, everything that we were doing needed a lot of hand-holding. We also had to provide some sort of professional service on top to create their 3D models for them, because ultimately the 3D files or the 3D models is the fuel to our engine to be able to do all these end solutions, right? And the brands didn't have them or didn't know where to go and look internally to find them. Believe it or not, Unilever, for instance, they have all these 3D files as they're prototyping for their products, but because they're so big, their commerce team did not know that they had 3D files somewhere in their libraries, and they didn't know who to go and ask to get them. So they were coming to us, asking us if we can turn their images into 3D files. And we were doing that. But at some point, we're like, guys,
you already have it.
How do you create your products? Like somebody somewhere creates a 3D file first to prototype it. And then because they started seeing the angle of how they can use us, they started involving more people and they found that they have these 3D assets. And then those 3D assets were perfect for our platforms, so they can upload them straight away and they could use them straight away to publish 3D viewers and all these things. So there was a bit of an education curve for brands to understand that, holy crap, doesn't mean because I'm used to working with imagery and videos that I only have these things. I actually have some 3D files and therefore they're not useless. Actually, I can do things for them. So brands started realizing that. Then, if you go into the fashion world, it was probably the most traditional industry out of all the industries we've worked with. But after COVID, they started understanding the importance of being technologically advanced. And I remember when we were talking with Fendi, they barely had any knowledge about 3D. And now after 6 years that we're working together with them, they already have a team, a dedicated 3D team that works on prototyping 3D assets, and then they're able to upload them onto our engine and then do all the other good stuff. So for us, because we're a small, nimble team, we have the platform that if you have some sort of 3D knowledge or internal 3D understanding, it's fully self-served and you just take it and run with it. But if you're a large organization and you understand the need of doing that, but you don't have the time or bandwidth to see where your 3D assets are or what you're going to do, then we have two motions. One is our ability to create 3D content fast. So we have an AI-powered workflow that would take imagery, convert it into 3D assets, and then upload it onto the platform, and then the brands can then launch 3D viewers, configurators, do all these good things with their 3D assets. So we provide that added service to the brands if they don't have an internal 3D team. But other than that, everything else is no code. So you don't need an extensive IT department to be able to use it. All you need to know is how to plug in APIs, connect IPAs, or just link our iframes into your specific placeholders, and you're good to go. We're now also releasing some no-code features on Shopify. So for the small to medium enterprises or companies that they want to use this and they don't even have, any IT backbone or whatever, they can just take our plugin, embed it onto their site, and then they can be able to create 3D viewer placeholders and stuff like that.
Okay. So there is I would call it a proprietary rendering solution that works only with Threedium, and you need the API or, as you mentioned, the iframe to integrate into other environments that would not normally be able to render the...
Correct. We, think of us as an infrastructure that takes a 3D file and allows the brands to make money or save money using that 3D file. So within our infrastructure, once you upload the 3D asset, you can start creating content. So if it's a shampoo, you can reconfigure it in 6 different versions, pink, turquoise, whatever. Reskin it in different labels that can fit all your different localization countries. So you have 52 countries with 52 languages. Straight away, you can do that. And then you can serve it as a static render, serve it as a CGI video, which you can publish on e-commerce, on social media and whatever. But you can then also launch it as a 3D viewer where people can explore it, see it in augmented reality, see how big it is, if it fits their shelves, whatever. So we give them an abundance of options as to what they can do to use that 3D asset and solve whatever challenge that it is that they want to do, either to enhance customer engagement or to scale content creation. And therefore we invested heavily in being able to be very agile and very compatible with all these different ecosystems. So regardless of what kind of CMS you might have, regardless of what kind of content management you might have, and whatever ERP you might have, or whether you're using Salesforce or HubSpot or SNP,
simple
SAP,
WordPress,
whatever, right?
Yeah.
We make it very simple for you to be able to use it across all those tech stacks that you might have. And now the catch is that our viewers make your products look way sexier, way better, because we invested a lot on the shaders that we have created. So they're all patented as well. So your 3D models are always going to look way better into our 3D viewers as opposed to an open source 3D viewer out there. And that is why we're also building a lot of defense mechanisms so that, brands are kind of like forced to use our viewers because their products are always going to have a better experience for the end customer.
Right. So as I've understood it, it's a software as a service. It includes the tools to actually create these 3D models, but then it also serves as a platform where
product experience building,
where the product experience and also as you touched on it before, it's also got engagement potential. So you can take it, spin it, click on it, whatever, and then you're collecting metrics with that and giving it back to the
metrics that a typical image or video is not able to give you back.
Yes. Because what part are you clicking on or zooming in on a specific image?
Exactly.
That's interesting insight for a retailer. So just think of an example actually that's helpful for the audience. If you're zooming in on, let's say you got the
shoes,
a phone or shoes, you want to see where's the logo placed, or the phone, like a phone, where is the microphone, and then if you're noticing that viewers are zooming in on where the little camera is.
Yeah.
It's insightful,
being able to understand how a user experiences your product gives you all sorts of insights. Is my product well built? Do people understand it? Do they add it to the basket after they zoom on a specific detail? Do they bounce? So you start seeing stuff that an image or a video was not able to offer you. And guess what? We're now entering this AI era, right? So you need all this data to be able to become more personalized. Because what is AI? Is basically pattern tracking and predicting future trends, right? So if I fit it with garbage data, it's going to fit me with garbage output and garbage predictions, right? Therefore, if I'm just giving it assumptions of what I think that my users do on my images, as opposed to giving it real actionable data from the 3D viewers as to how users interact with my product, it's only then going to be able to give you more personalized experiences. I'll give you an example. If you and me now go on adidas.com, it's a shame, but we're going to see the same thing. And we shouldn't. We're in 2025. Like, you have a different taste and expectation of a shoe versus what I have. Now, if we both now go there, you're going to start exploring the shoes that are, let's say you like more darker color shoes, and maybe you care more about the sole because you have some sort of sensitive, feet, right? So instantly you shift to see the sole of the shoe, and instantly you care more about darker color shoes. And I don't care that much about the sole. Maybe I care more about the laces, and I care about more brighter colors. So the first time we go on the adidas.com and we start interacting, our 3D viewers are then able to predict what kind of user you are and what you like. And then the second time we go on the adidas.com, the camera views, the colors of those shoes are going to shift to meet your standards. And therefore, you're going to have a different experience and I will have a different one, because I'm able to start collecting these things and fit them back to the brand.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it is incredible how technology is opening up so many other data points that can be fed back into the digital world.
Yeah.
That could help businesses increase sales even further.
Yeah.
Super interesting.
We can go on and on talking about all these things. Of course, there's a lot of confidentiality there, yes. So I'm very careful as to what I'm sharing.
So, I mean, we're closing in on almost an hour here, and I think you had also asked me how much time we've got left, but let's maybe conclude on 2 points as we end this podcast. So one is, let's talk about the current size and success that Threedium has so far, what kind of clients you have, and what the next 5 years looks like.
Yeah. I'll start answering that question with something you said in the beginning, that you said that you guys are successful because you raised 15 million.
That was going to be my next question. I was
yeah.
going to say, what advice can you give someone to raise funding?
Okay, let's mix then those 2 questions.
Okay, great.
But I'll start with that. Like, me at first, I was also a victim of that narrative. Like, the more money you raise, the more successful you're bound to be, or the more successful you are. Sadly, the market as well evaluates you like that. If you raise 15 million, man, you're killing it. You're the best company. But if that company is not capital efficient, or they're not deploying that money wisely, or their product is not actually the product that they're pitching it to be, and then it has all sorts of different cracks, then it's bound to collapse. And therefore, whether you raise 15 or 50 or 150 million, you're as good as nothing. And eventually all these people that invested time and money with you, they're going to be chasing you, right? Like, what the fuck just happened? Yeah. So the one thing I want to say to anyone who is aspiring to be an entrepreneur, or who is in the midst of fundraising is a necessary evil. And I will always see it as an evil, because it can deprioritize important things when you're running your company. It can potentially change your strategy and the way that you're seeing the world, and change even your vision of your product, because you're then liable to investors, or you promise something to investors to raise money, or because a lot of people have put money in you, they're now wanting to have a saying in your company. And if you start lose control, then you start lose your vision, then you start lose all these other important things that are main drivers that dictate the success of a story, or how successfully you can execute on your dream. So a lot of people need to be wary that there's always a catch when you raise money. And that's to my point that I said before. Like, if I was starting a company again, I would probably do it all differently from a fundraising perspective, whether I want to raise money for the company or not. For us, raising money was good at the time that we were raising the money, because it was giving us the boost we needed, but we thought we needed it. Because if we were structuring our go-to-market approach differently, or we were structuring the way we were building or prioritizing features in our product differently, we wouldn't even need fundraising. But we were just enamored by the hype of entering the startup world, that you have to raise money to be someone, that we raised money and it delayed our success because we had to do all these other things. Like we had to go into a few circles before we reached the end goal. Now, I know that, you don't need that to reach your end goal. But I'm not going to sit back and say that, raising 15 million did not do good for us. Like it put us into the spotlight. It shows that, we're people that we're credible. We're able to speak with large investors. Large reputable investors are willing to bet their money with us. So it has other benefits. And it did allow us to win more clients because we showed that we are a company with a stronger cash flow, the ability to withstand, macroeconomic headwinds, and et cetera, et cetera. But it's not the biggest criteria of success. For us, the way we see the future is that I like to use a phrase that we change our minds when the facts change. So if you ask me that question 5 years ago, my answer was going to be different. Right now, with what I'm seeing in front of me as a CEO, the fact that AI is here to stay, and oh my God, how fast it changes every day, we start to think that SaaS is going to die as a model because everything is going to be AI driven. So, and eventually, I feel that there's going to be like 5, maybe 6 AI tools out there that they're just going to do everything for everyone. There's going to be one AI tool for search, product discovery, buying online. There's going to be another AI tool that it's going to be, your tool for doing all your, bookkeeping and day-to-day stuff that you need to do. And there's going to be like a few other AI things for other important stuff. But that's it. There's going to be like 6 AI go-to places, and everything is going to be part of those AI. So what we are doing right now is that we're leveraging all our APIs to make them agentic AIs, basically, which will connect with the powerful AI softwares, albeit being OpenAI, Grok, Gemini, and give commands to our platform to just do things. You don't need to be a 3D modeler. You don't need to be a coder. That's the path we're seeing. And also voice intelligence is going to be key in the next foreseeable future. People now talk to their devices. They talk to their phones. They talk to things. They're going to be talking to their smart glasses. So we are embedding voice intelligence into our 3D models. And now you can talk to the 3D model. Hey, now change. Now turn. Now show me how you look in red or leather. These are the kind of things that we are seeing from our point of view, from the industry we work with, and we're doubling down on. But I feel that every company in the SaaS world needs to be thinking, how can I make my SaaS a no-code engine that responds to any kind of AI command? Because if you don't do that, you're bound to be obsolete very soon.
See, that's such an interesting perspective, and can we expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so when we talk about SaaS, just for those who don't know, it's software as a service.
Yeah.
And an example of that is Microsoft 365 with Excel Online. And what you're predicting is that Excel won't even be needed.
No, you're going to have Gemini, and then you're going to say, Gemini, hey, Gemini, here is this data that I just extracted from, whatever portfolio I manage or whatever. Predict me 3 different scenarios of moderate risk, high risk, and low risk of what the outcome might be. You don't need to enter Excel anymore. It's going to be as simple as that. Now, are we there yet? No, but can we get there fast? Probably, because these guys are training their models on hundreds of thousands of data points every day. And we're getting there faster than we ever anticipated. So eventually, people in the tech world might not even have jobs. I don't know. It's people in the tech world, they're important until they're not. And we don't understand how fast this is moving. So we just need to be able to find windows of how we can build stuff that are just going to enhance the abilities of the AI, and therefore that's the future of the products that we're going to be building.
That's interesting. But here's something else. SaaS, this example that I brought, right, and with Microsoft or Excel, Outlook, whatever, email. There's also predictions that email's not going to be email's going to become obsolete. Messaging is going to be, communication is going to change. Again, it could, one could envision that instead of having an application where you're looking at emails and you're going and you're looking for correspondence or whatever it is, you just have it all fed into an AI. And when you need to recall something, or what your to-do is, or communication, it's just all ready in this AI agent. And you just go and say, who sent me a message that I need to follow up on, and whatever. And then that scrolling, searching, flagging, all that becomes obsolete. But here's a counter argument. Do you know that fax is still being used today?
I'm not shocked. But also, did you know that only 1% of the world uses AI right now?
That is, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So there's still a long way to go in terms of adoption.
But, if you look at, Google, right, in terms of a search, if do a little bit of a personal survey and just ask. I'm pretty sure you can, what people would use Google for in the past. Gary Vaynerchuk was saying this. I think I've mentioned this in a previous podcast, but super interesting, right, man? Because it's true. What people would normally go to Google for, you're going to ChatGPT or something else, Perplexity for, because it's giving you results. It's giving a convenient way to produce the results that requires manual work. So where Google gives you a list of top results, and now you got to go into
which are SEO biased,
SEO driven.
By the way, so it doesn't mean it gives you the best
results. So 100%. So if you're looking for something specific, or somebody who's got a white paper posted that doesn't care about SEO, but his or her quality is very scientific and correct, you got to really dig into pages. Yeah. But now that requires effort, requires work, and the convenience that AI brings, where you search for whatever and it just gives you the results,
100%.
Is changing consumer behavior. But this 1% statistic that you just mentioned, there's also demographics change. New populations start accessing the internet that never had before. Faxes are still being used. That's another incredible statistic.
It's mind-blowing, to be honest, but I see why. Why not?
Yeah. Like dial-up. I think AOL, or one of these huge businesses in telecoms businesses, who obviously, the majority of their business is digital, DSL or whatever, internet, cable. 50 million a year or something from dial-up. Yeah. That just fax. Yeah. We're talking about technologies of the 90s still being used today. Yeah. And we're talking about, AI and vision goggles and things, and replacing SaaS completely. I think there's still going to be a massive market share, but, consumer behavior is definitely going to change, and it's just opening up so many more markets. But, it's going to be interesting to see how the world...
Look, it's all how we're seeing, going back to how we started patterns. Yes. There's a pattern that we can predict now. For instance, even for you guys, right? The more AI-powered tools you continue to build, because you're sitting on so much data, the more AI-powered you become, at some point in the next 5 years, 10 years, when all these AI companies are going to be consolidating companies, because there's going to be a huge consolidation. AI to work, it needs data. It needs people to feed it with data. So they're bound to acquire companies sitting on large data to keep training their models. So there's going to be a huge consolidation for all these companies sitting on data and doing AI-powered things. And eventually, who knows, Microsoft or Meta will have to come and buy you because they need your data. And there's no other way. And also, you're not going to be able to compete against Meta. So everybody in the tech world needs to understand that they will have a profound opportunity for a good exit. But they just need to become a bit more AI powered in their offerings. And then there's going to be, unfortunately, yes, there's only going to be 6 players, 7 players, 10 players tops, but that's it. Because, let's face it, like we only go to Google for search, even though there's Yahoo and everything. So that's what I'm saying. There's only going to be like 10 players, each specified in a different niche of our everyday that they're going to be excelling at. And they're going to be buying all these other data that they need to keep training their models and all these amazing other people to do it. Now, how each one of us is going to be using AI, again, like scrolling, we're all going to go into these very, autopilot mode. But the ones that they're smarter as to how they're going to use it, what kind of prompts they're going to use, how they're going to be able to decipher through the data and information that they're getting through the AI, those are the ones that they're going to keep excelling. It's no different. It's just like it's the world just a bit more intelligent.
Right. I mean, this is it's just reminding me of another product that we work in here in DGM, where we have a BI tool, right? And if you look at the BI world, it is static in a sense of, call it like how you compare Web 2.0 to Web 3.0, right? And where it's static in terms of the dashboards and the visualizations that are available in the BI tool are kind of fixed, and you have to develop something new to give you some analytics that's important for you. While the data could be dynamic, right?
100%.
There's new information every day, and it's changing the visuals and the insights of those static dashboards. The AI era changes that in where whatever you want and whatever you need in terms of analytics, you just ask your data and it responds.
Yeah. And then Tableau, for instance, at some point, they're going to need to come and acquire that if they want to be an AI tool for BI for everyone, right? That's what I'm saying. Like, there's a huge opportunity. Everyone in tech right now, before we become obsolete, to make some good money.
Interesting. Such an interesting. This is a topic I love so much. Technology, I love it. Very interesting insights that you brought here, Mike. Well done on what you've done so far. And what
likewise, guys.
Thank you. And let's go with closing comments. Let the viewers know where they can find you. Your Threedium website, yourself, LinkedIn, whatever it is. Let's go with closing comments.
Look, a nice phrase that I've learned from one of my closest investors is that, and it's a very wise man, is that if anyone ever wants to find you, they'll find you. So I mean, try the traditional ways, whatever. But if you really want to reach out to me, you'll find a way. Like you did.
Yeah, right? That's right. So it's Mike Charalambous.
Exactly. But my 50 piece of advice is, if you love something, if you never stop thinking about it, and a day goes by and that's what keeps you going every day, go for it. Keep showing up, keep fighting, keep sweating, and then good things are bound to happen. Eventually, somehow.
100%. I love it. And that's a great way to conclude.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Good.